I will explain you how to print this particular number triangle pattern. So basically I'm using Java language. I have created one class pattern program. So inside this class we have one this main method, and to print this particular pattern we need four different variables. So initially we have taken int a row is equal to 4. So because we want this particular pattern to be in the 4 rows, so that's why row is equal to 4. In num is equal to 1. What it means? It means on the first row we have only one digit or one particular number. Then on the second row we have three numbers. So this count will be increased with the help of this num variable. And what is this space is equal to 3? Initially, if you see on the first row, when we compare is with the last row, we have here three spaces before one. So there are three spaces. That's why I have taken space is equal to 3 and digit is equal to 1, which is this actual number 1. Then it will be 2, then it will be 3, then it will be 4. So to increase that number, we have used digit is equal to 1. Okay, so after that, in the for loop, what we have is integer I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to row I plus plus. So this outer for loop will execute for the 4 times. Here it's a row is equal to 4. That's why it will work for 4 times, 4 iterations, and each iteration what we want, on the first iteration it will print this first row, on the second iteration it will print this 2 2 2, then on the third iteration it will print 3, and on the fourth it will print 4s. Okay, so inside this for loop, outer for loop, we have two different for loops. So first one is to print the spaces. So if you see, firstly we are printing space and then number. That's why for loop for to print the space, integer k is equal to 0, k less than space, k plus plus, system dot out dot print, and here we are printing space. We are not using ln, we are just using print, so that it will be in the same row. Then in the second for loop, what we have is integer j is equal to 0, j less than num, j plus plus. So after printing these three spaces, this will execute for 3 times because k value space value is 3. That's why this loop will execute 3 times. Then this loop will execute. So in this row, what we have num is equal to 1 initially, and digit is also 1. So this loop will execute for one time, only for one time, and it will print 1. So after execution of this for loop, we have system.out.println to change the row. So in the second row, what we want, num is equal to num plus 2. What it means? Initially we have print this one only one times. Now we want it to be 3 times. That's why I have taken num is equal to num. Initially num is 1, so we want to print it 3 times. That's why num plus 2. And space initially we have 3. Now it is only for 2 times. When we compare it with the last row, we have only 2 spaces. That's why I have taken space minus minus, so that it will reduce count from 3 to 2. And digit plus plus, it means we want to print 2 digit. Initially we are printing 1, now we have to print 2. That's why we have taken in a digit plus plus. So for the second iteration, what will happen, it will print 2 spaces. Then for in this for loop, it will print 2 digit for 3 times. This num is now 3. That's why this for loop will execute 3 times and it will print digit. Now digit is 2. We have increased it from 1 to 2. Again for the third iteration, what will happen is this for loop will print 1 space, and then this for loop will print 5 times, because again we have increased digit from 2 to 3 and num from 3 to 5. Again for the last iteration, it will print once a 0 space, and then it will print 4s. Like that it will execute. Let's execute the code and check whether we have written the correct code, and it should print the pattern exactly same. Yeah, it's working, and that's how we can print this number this triangle. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. How to print this particular pattern? So basically I am using Java language. I have created one class pattern program, and inside this class I have one main method. So this is our main method, and so to print this particular pattern, what we need is we need four different variables here. So if you see integer row is equal to 4, because if you see there are total 4 rows that of this particular pattern. So that's why I have taken integer row is equal to 4. then int num is equal to 7. So what it means? It means, like, if you see on the first row we have total, this digit count is 7, so that's why I have taken num is equal to 7. Then on the second line num is count is 5, then 3, then 1. So that's why we are reducing this num is equal to num minus 2 in each iteration, in each row. Okay, then we have space is equal to 0, which means initially we don't have any space here, but in the second row we have one space when we compare it with 1. Then in the third row we have two spaces, then in the third row we have three spaces. So the count will increase from 0 to 1, so that's why I have taken space plus plus. So initially space will be 0 and digit is equal to 1. So what it is, so in the first row we are printing 1, that's why I have taken digit is equal to 1. Okay, so let's go to the next for loop. Okay, so for loop integer I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to row I plus plus. Here row is 4, so this outer for loop will execute for 4 times for 4 iterations. So inside the for loop we have two other for loops. So the first for loop is to print the space. Now if you see, so firstly we are printing space, that is initially 0, then 1, then 2. That's why I have taken first for loop for the space. So it will start from in k is equal to 0, k less than space, k plus plus. Here initially space is 0, that's why system.out.print will print, it will not execute because space is 0, so this condition will not execute. Then in the second for loop what we have is integer j is equal to 0, j less than num, j plus plus, system.out.print digit. So what is digit? Digit is 1 and initially num is total 7. So this for loop will execute 7 times and it will print digit, which means 1. So it will print in the same row because we are just using print and not print ln. So after this two for loops, we have system.out.println, which will change the row from 1 to 2. Then we have num is equal to num minus 2. So initially we have num count is 7, and in the second row we want this to be 5. That's why I have taken num minus 2 and space will be 1 here. So I have done space plus plus and digit plus plus, which means we want to print digit is initially 1, we want to print 2 on the second row, that's why also we have done digit plus plus. For the next iteration what will happen, I value will be 2 and here it will print one space, first for loop, and second for loop it will print 2 5 times, right? Then again it will change the row, then num will be num minus 2, which is 3, space will be 2 and digit will be 3 now, and again it will execute the next iteration. Inside this it will print 2 spaces, 3 times in the second for loop, and then again it will change the row, num will now be 4, num will be 1 only, 3 minus 2 1, space will be 3 and the digit will be 4. In the next iteration it will print 3 spaces, then 1 4, and then it will again change the row, and that, yeah, that's the condition. So let's execute the code and check whether we have written the correct code. Let's see it. Yes, we are printing the given pattern exactly the same. So this is how we can print this particular pattern using this code. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. I will explain you how to print this particular pattern. So basically I'm using Java language. I have created one class pattern program, and inside this class we are having one main method. So this is our main method, and inside this main method what we have is we have one variable list and one is for loop. So okay, this for loop is important. So before that we need to understand these variables. So we are having three different variables, and first one is row is equal to 4. So what it means, it means we are printing this particular pattern in the 4 rows. So there are 4 rows, that's why we have taken a row is equal to 4. Then int num is equal to 1. So what it means, so we are printing only one particular count number only once. In the second row we are printing it for 2 times, then for the 3 times. So to increase that particular count we are using num, and digit 1 is to increase the number, like here it's 1, then it will be 2, then 3 4 5 6, so that will be increased by using this digit. Okay, so then Then in the for loop, what we have is integer I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to row I plus plus, which means we are executing this particular for loop for the 4 times, for the 4 iterations. So in each iteration, what our target is, on the first iteration it will print 1, second iteration it will print this 2, then 2 3, then for 4 5 6, then 7 8 9 10. So this is our expectation for each iteration from this for loop. So how it will work is, we are having one more for loop inside the for loop. So it says integer j is equal to 0, j less than num, j plus plus. Okay, so what is num? Num is 1, and we are having system dot out dot print digit. So digit is also 1. Okay, and then we are using digit plus plus. So we are increasing this value for each iteration. For each iteration, the value of the digit will be increased. Okay, so now what will happen is, the num is initially 1 and digit is also 1. So this system dot out dot print will print this particular 1. And now digit plus plus, which means that the value of digit is now 2. Okay, so now digit is 2 and this loop will execute. After that, system dot out dot println, this loop will not execute now because num is only 1, so this loop will only execute once. And it has, what it has done, it has printed 1 and value of digit is increased from 1 to 2. That two tasks performed by this one iteration. Then what will happen is, the system dot out dot println will change the row. Like in the next line, it will print the next for loop. Then num plus plus, we have increased the value of num from 1 to 2 by here, this outside the for loop, this for loop outside the for loop. Okay, for the next iteration, for the second iteration I value 2, what will happen, this for loop will execute. So now num is 2, and so this loop will execute 2 times, system dot out dot print digit. So now digit is 2, because in the last iteration we got this digit increased by 1. So now digit will print once, that is 2, and then again this digit value will increase by 1, that is 3 for the second iteration. Because num is 2, that's why this loop will execute once again, and now it will print the 3, because it has increased value of digit, so it will print 3. And again for a third iteration it will not execute because num is only 2. Then system dot out dot println will change the row, and num plus plus, num value will increase from 2 to 3. Okay, for the third iteration of this outer for loop, what will happen, this for loop will execute, and now the num value is 3. So system dot out dot print digit, what is digit now, digit value is now 4, and it will print 4. Then digit value will again increase from 4 to 5, and again this loop will execute, and now it will print 5. Again it will execute. Why it is executing now, it is executing for 3 times because num value is 3, that's why this loop will execute 3 times. And it will for each iteration it will print a digit, and every time it will increase value by 1, 4 5 6. So that's how it will work. Again it will change the row, and num value will increase from 3 to 4. And then for the last iteration, what will happen is num value is 4. So this for loop, inner for loop, will execute for the 4 times. Now the digit value is 7, because for the last iteration it has increased from 6 to 7. Now it will print 7. Then digit value will increase by 1. Again it will execute, and it will print 8. Again 9, then 10. It will execute for the 4 times, and it will print 7 8 9 10. And this is how it will execute. So let's run the code and check whether we have written the correct code, and it should print our expected pattern. Yeah, this is how we can print the given pattern in this way. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. This particular diamond shape numbers pattern. So how to print that I will explain in this video. So basically I am using Java language. I have created one class pattern program, and inside this class we have one main method. And to print this particular pattern we need 4 different variables. So we have first one is int row. What is this row? Row is equal to 7. So we are printing this diamond pattern in 7 rows. If you see the 4, then these are 3, so these are total 7 rows. That's why I have taken row is equal to 7. Then int num is equal to 1. So what it means, so in on the first row we are printing one only one times, then 2 3 times. So this count will be increased with the help of this num variable. So initially on the first row we have only 1, so that's why I have taken num is equal to 1. Then space is equal to 3. So when we compare the space with respect to this, the highest like digits, row, then we can see that there are total three spaces. Like here it's one, here it's two, here these are three spaces. That's why I have taken space is equal to 3 and digit is equal to 1, which means initially we have 1, then 2, then 3, 4, then 3 to 1. So to change this number, we are using digit variable is equal to 1. Initially it's 1, so that's why it will be 1. Then we have for loop. So this outer for loop will be will execute, and in each execution it will print for the first iteration it will print 1, for the second iteration it will 2 to 2, then for the third iteration it will be like this, then for the fourth iteration it will be like this, then for the fifth, sixth, seventh, so all these iterations that will be printed. Okay, so here int I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to a row I plus plus. Here total row is 7, so it will execute for the 7 times. Then we have another two for loops inside the outer for loop. So what is the use of these two for loops? So the first for loop is related to printing the space. If we see, so initially we are printing space first and then we are printing this number. Here also we are printing one space, two spaces, then number, then one space and then number, and spaces are there. So we will first use this for loop to print the space. So here we have taken integer k is equal to 0, k less than space, k plus plus, and system dot out dot print, and here it will be space. Okay, so for the first iteration what will happen is initially its value of space is 3. So this loop, this for loop will execute for 3 times and it will print 3 spaces. And then after that what will happen, in this for loop what will happen, it will print the digit. So digit is 1. So here int j is equal to 0, j less than num, j plus plus. So num is 1, and this system dot out dot print digit is also 1. So this for loop will execute only once and it will print this 1. Okay, so after that what will happen, a system dot out dot println, this will change the row from 1 to 2. And here we have one of the important condition, so if else condition. So what it says is when I is less than or equal to 3, which means when for these many conditions, for these first 3 rows, what we want is we want to increase the number. Initially it's 1, now we want to print 3, then we want to print 5, and then we want to print 7. So this number we are increasing by 2. So for the first 3 rows, for the first 4 rows, okay, so what we are doing is when I is less than or equal to 3, this I value, which is row, which means row value is less than or equal to 3, at that time num is equal to num plus 2. We are increasing the value by 2. Here the count is increasing by 2, so that's why num will be num plus 2 and space minus minus. Here the space is reducing. Initially space is 3, then 2, then 1, then 0. So space is reducing, that's why space minus minus. And digit plus plus, what is digit? Digit is the 1 that we are printing. uh, in the second row we will print 2, on the third row we are printing 3. So this digit is also increasing for each row, that's why we are using digit plus plus. Okay, so for these first 4 rows this condition, and after this first 4 rows we are reducing the number. So what we are using digit as 3, and then we are increasing the space by 1 and also reducing the num by 2. So for that what we have done is num is equal to num minus 2. This num count will reduce by 2, space will increase by 1. Here it's space 1, 2, 3, the space will increase by 1, and digit is also minus minus, because from 4 we want 3, then we want 2, so digit is also minus minus. So this is how it will execute. Let's execute the code. So I will explain. For the first iteration I have explained. For the second iteration what will happen, now I value is 2. So what will happen is, so here we this condition is satisfied for the first row, first iteration, and the num value will become now 3, space will be a minus minus, which is 2, and digit will increase from 1 to 2 again. And then for the second iteration what will happen is this will execute 2 times. The space value is now 2, so this will execute 2 times, that is these 2 spaces. And then what will happen, this for loop will execute for 3 times. Num value is now 3. From 1 it will like we have done num is equal to num plus 2, which is 1 plus 2, 3. So it will print a 2. Digit is also increased by 1 from 1 to 2. Now 2 will be printed 3 times. Then it will change the row. the third row, and then again this condition will be satisfied. I value is now 2, so it will be satisfied. Then again it will increase the num value by 2, which is 5. Space value will be reduced from 2 to 1, and digit is also increasing from 2 to 3. Again it will print space is equal to 1 times, then it will execute only one for the one time, and then it will execute for the 5 times. The num value is 5, so it will print 5 times 3, that is digit is 3, so it will print like that. So this is how it will work. And for the fourth iteration it will also increase, and it will print 7 times this 4 number, four digit. And again it for the last three iterations it will reduce the num by 2 and increase the space by 1, and digit will be reduced from 4 to 3, 3 to 2, 2 to 1. So this is how it will work. So let's execute the code and check whether we have written the correct code, and it should print exactly same diamond pattern. Yeah, this is working. So yeah, so this is how we can print this particular pattern. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.